Hey guys, welcome to week 3. I want to quickly go over some stuff for today. In your Google Classroom, you'll notice that I've added week 3. You have 2 Edpuzzles, a little different than the ones you've had in the past. This Edpuzzle, the Americans Discovered the Metric System, I'm just looking to see that you watched it. There's no questions, okay, but I'll see on my end if you watched the entire video. It's really short. The second one, if you are a history buff, this one's for you. Okay, it's the history of the metric system. There's a lot more there than you probably realize. And even though in 2020 you're sitting in America using the customary system, that's not the way it is everywhere, nor the way it's always been. So this one, it will not give you a grade when you're done. There's going to be an open-ended response that I'll go in and grade myself. So don't be alarmed if it doesn't give you a grade. Okay? And it'll post after I've looked at your responses. Okay? You're going to want to focus your attention on the pen flip investigation. Last week we did the airplane investigation. We did that as a test run for this. So we walked through all the steps that you're going to do for your pen flip, but we did it with the paper airplane. So everything we do, you can always go back in your science notebook and look at the airplane investigation if you get confused. Okay? So it's the same layout on the Google Slides presentation that you're going to look at. Here's the instructions. Essentially, you're going to pick out 2 different pens. Okay, I don't mean pen colors. I mean like this one, my G2, is a click pen and it's got the clip to put on a shirt or whatnot. And then maybe I'll pick something a little smoother, like this big pen that has a cap and no click, just so it has a different grip texture to it. So 2 different pens, and you're essentially going to flip them and watch me drop it, I'm sure. Haha. Flip it and catch it as many times as you can in 30 seconds. So you may do it seated, you may stand up, that's totally up to you. You'll kind of examine those things when you get to figuring out your constants. But the overarching idea is that you have 2 different pens, and you're going to flip one for 30 seconds 3 times. So we'll do 3 trials, and you will fill in how many times you were able to flip it and catch it during that 30 seconds. So you're going to need something to time it with. So if you have a different device or a clock on the wall, the device you're using has one as well. It may say clock or timer. Like if you have one of the Chromebooks, the little gray search bar at the bottom, just type in clock. Okay, you can use that. You're going to want to do a couple test runs. 1, to get your technique down, and then 2, to try and time yourself. Okay, like that's part of the technique of it. Okay, so or you may have someone in your family help you out, which is completely fine. Okay, and then you're going to record your data. You're going to make a data chart in your science notebook, which I'll show you in a second, just like we did for the airplane data. Record the 3 trials for each pen type. You're going to total those up and get the average, just like we did for the airplane. And then you're going to make a bar graph of it. So the instructions are here. And I think that Miss Henning is in the file too, so bear with me. Okay. You will have the data chart in your science notebook. Okay, but keep it there until you're done and you come to fill out the Google form, but you will enter your data here. Okay, so notice there's your 3 trials for pen 1 and pen 2. You add trial 1, trial 2, trial 3 to get your total, and then divide it by 3 to get the average. Remember, it's fine to use a calculator. You will probably get a decimal. Round it to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place. Right? Or if you have like a repeater, like 0.33333, you can put the repeater bar. That's fine. But don't round it to a whole number. We'll talk later about like significant figures and stuff. So unless I tell you otherwise, go ahead and round to the tenth place. You'll fill in your data chart. Part of what you'll need to do is identify your variables here. Okay, so you have variable notes in your science notebook, and you have the page that you need to use as a model for the paper airplane, okay, which is probably your page 3 in your science notebook. But you're going to identify in this scenario, what's the independent variable? And you ask yourself, what did I change on purpose? Okay. The dependent variable, what are you measuring? Don't fall to the mistake that you're measuring time. You decided as a scientist, we decided to choose 30 seconds, and that's consistent amongst all the trials. So that's, while you are paying attention to the time, that is not what is affected by your independent variable. Okay, so that gets you into constants. What are you going to keep the same? Obviously the time frame. But other things, think about where you are, who's doing it. Look back at your airplane model if you get stuck. Okay, but these are the things that are going to be identical for each of the trials for both pins. Okay, so you'll fill in the independent variable, the dependent variable, and give me at least 3 constants. There are far more, but a minimum of 3. Here, you're going to insert the picture of the graph you create in your science notebook. Okay, so at this point, we've done multiple things where we have inserted pictures. So if you're still struggling with that, you need to come to tutoring or have someone in your house help you out. But you're going to create the graph in your science notebook and then paste it in here. Okay, and then you've got a couple of conclusion questions. Remember, there's a time and place for short and sweet. This is not it. I want complete, intelligent thoughts. You'll answer what errors occurred in this investigation. Okay, so what went wrong? And be honest, like, we're wrong a lot in science. That's how we figure out what to do next. It's okay, but be specific about what kind of went wacky. Just something you learned in the process of doing it. Okay, that's kind of a wide open question for you. And then the last one, I can improve this investigation by. So if you were going to do it again, what would you change to make it better? So think about each piece of it and what you could tweak to make it be a better investigation. Okay? So you have this file, but remember that in Google Classroom, I have my science notebook, there it is, my science notebook Google Slides that is always up to date with what we've put in. Okay, so I've taken pictures of my science notebook. You need to make yours look like mine. Right, so we made 2 new pages today. Once it decides to load, let me scroll on down. There it comes. Okay, so just as review, remember we made our page for paper airplanes. We identified the variables and then we made our data table. It's nice and neat. Those are just our notes to help us out. Don't forget this Sultan checklist. Your graph should have all of these things if it is a good quality, easy to read graph. We constructed our airplane investigation graph. It was a bar graph with 2 things, just like ours will be today. When we get to the pen flip graph in a second, it's pretty easy and straightforward. The thought process you'll have to have is deciding what your scale or interval is. Like, how much is each one of these little lines going to be worth? And remember, you figure that out by looking at your averages. And your biggest average has to fit on here. Notice it uses up 3/4 of the page, but it doesn't like go so high that it's into the title. Right? Remember, it's got a title. The airplane investigation graph is not the title. Design versus distance is, because airplane investigation graph doesn't really tell me what the investigation's about, where the design versus the distance gives me a little more insight into what this graph is going to show me. Okay? So I just gave you the bare bones in class. It's the same format as your airplane investigation. Identify your variables, create your data table, do the investigation and fill in the data table, total up, do the average. Remember, get the average, you add the 3 trials, you write that in the total line, and then since there's 3 of them, you divide by 3. Okay? Then you will create your graph. So that's just the axes there, but you'll make a bar graph. You can go back and look at slide 9 to see how we made the airplane graph. Right? If you have questions, you're welcome to come to tutoring or send me a message or an email. Have a good day.